Hey, welcome back to Daily Hope. I'm going to warn you on our breakthrough journey, we're about to dive into some teachings of Jesus that you rarely hear them taught in the American church. Some theories of why that is, but there's some things that Jesus said very clearly that you hardly ever hear on, Christian radio or the books we read or most of the sermons that we listen to. It's around this story of a guy called the rich young ruler. And this isn't the only time Jesus said these kind of shocking, controversial things. He said them a lot. But I'm going to take you into just one example. Now, let me give you some context that I had never noticed before about the rich young ruler. Right before this rich young ruler approaches Jesus and says, "What must I do to be perfect with God?" Jesus was in the middle of blessing children. Maybe you've heard this story when a whole bunch of kids run up to God or to Jesus, and he's praying over them, blessing them. And the disciples say, "Get all these kids away. The Messiah is too important to be dealing with kids." And Jesus says, no, suffer or allow the little ones to come to me, for such is the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God, in the kingdom of God, the most valuable thing is a person, a soul, and every child matters to God. So then in contrast comes the rich young ruler, who is pretentious and religious, and in his world, material wealth is the highest value, not people. So as he asks, "What do I need to do to be perfect with God?" Jesus says, "Well, are you keeping the commandments?" He says, "Oh yeah, I've kept every single one since I was born. I've never made a mistake." And then Jesus says here in verse 21, "If you want to be perfect, go and sell all your possessions and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me." Now, the part of what Jesus is teaching here is the treasure in heaven. We don't hear this talked about very often. Sometimes you might hear people say like, "Oh, you'll have crowns in heaven, but then you'll just throw them all at Jesus' feet." So it's kind of like, does it really matter? Jesus is going to teach in this passage to his disciples that the sacrifices they make here on earth will result in tangible treasure in the new heaven and the new earth. And we'll get to that in the further verses of this passage as we keep going these next few days.